Hello, y'all. This is a team review session for anyone, my team, and anyone else that wants to join. To get things started, I'm going to read through our mantra, and then we'll let Becca take it away. So please keep the following in mind throughout this team review session. We are not our designs. We will not offend anyone in this room intentionally. We will practice benevolent radical candor, which is to care personally but challenge directly when sending feedback. We will be open to receiving benevolent radical candor feedback and will be, if necessary, willing to let go of things that aren't working. These sessions are about candid talk, spirited debate, fun, and passion for what we do as designers for a living. Cool. Becca, if you will give us a quick overview of what you would like to do today, and then feel free to share screens, etc.
Okay, so I am on a borrow to the observability team. So I am onboarding this week. And as with most onboarding for a highly technical product, it's drinking from a fire hose. So I don't have a ton of context about how this part of the product is used yet, but I'm going to tell you what I know. Just know in advance that I may not be able to answer many follow-up questions, but those follow-up questions are still valid, just to help me think through, like, what do I need to know? So I will make note, and when I chat with Sasha later, we'll get those answers from him. So my first task on observability is to do a UX scorecard. And as we were just chatting about before we started the recording, I don't know if Sasha is even looking for anything particular outside of, they have a dedicated designer now. I know, Justin, you were supporting them up until now, but juggling that with all of your other tasks. So what I want to do in this call is go through the pages as the team has built out, primarily with the PM and the engineers building this out, and then some guidance from Justin. And Justin, I don't know if your involvement was like as they were building them or more of like an evaluative after they launched stuff. But I know that there are a number of UX improvements we can just look at, and keeping in mind the Nielsen Norman, like 10 heuristics, usability heuristics, usability of system status, user control and freedom, error prevention, flexibility and efficiency of use, help and documentation, things like that. We can just kind of look at, hey, this might be an area that needs improving. So I will share my screen.
Some quick color too. Also, I'm adding the links to our heuristics to the agenda. Okay. Observability was part of an acquisition that we did, like, coming up in 2 years now, and they were initially tasked with taking their product that they had and integrating it into GitLab. The problem was it was built on a different code base framework. So they were trying to reskin it, and then eventually we decided that was a bad idea. So now they're kind of building it from scratch within pajamas, without a designer. So a lot of the things that they're doing is trying to figure out how to use pajamas. Are they using it correctly while they're building these things out? So what I've been helping them with is a little bit as they build it, and a little bit I've built it. Can you review it to make sure we're following pajamas? And then every once in a while, I'll do a quick design to point them towards a direction of how they might do something. But they were no research, not a lot of data. I have a very limited understanding of the processes and things myself. So I'd get the information as I was going and then try to figure out how to convert it into a design. So super, super startup-y.
Yeah. And here's like the official definition of observability. It allows developers and operators, I mean, just looking at the roles that Will and Michael Oliver spoke to for the job to be done research, system administrator, SRE, which is what site reliability engineer, senior software engineer, DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, full stack engineer. So it's a lot of engineers, but then there's also this SRE. And I don't know if that's an exhaustive list of all of like the roles. But it enables these people to visualize and analyze application performance, availability, and user experience based on the telemetry data it generates, such as traces, metrics, or logs. So it can answer questions such as to understand the impact of a code or configuration change. It could answer questions such as what caused this failure, what caused this change in behavior, why do a particular user's requests fail, what are the performance bottlenecks impacting our UX, is my latest Canary deployment stable? So that's at a high level, like what I know about why people use observability, and the goal is really to resolve issues faster and minimize downtime.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to keep their product in their users' hands as running as smoothly as possible, right? That's really what this is about. We release a product, we want people to be able to use it. Can they? If they can't, why? What happened? How do we fix it? How do we get it back up as quickly as possible?
Right.
Question, Graham, or are you waving?
With that, can you guys hear me? Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, oh, no, I should be. Sorry. Okay. Is that, how would that, I guess, work alongside or in conjunction with the product analytics stuff that we were talking about on, was that Tuesday, with us using analytics or product analytics in the future to diagnose and almost like triage errors that are in the code, so that teams can be like, oh, this code change happened and page views plummeted because there was some sort of error. Is this like
related?
That seems almost exactly like what we were talking about too.
Yes,
On
very
Tuesday?
related.
Sorry, me and Justin had
Gotcha.
a meeting with my team on Tuesday, and it's like a future state of product analytics, but I think they were still figuring out the architecture for it and whether or not that part of it was like possible and where it would fit in the roadmap. But it sounds like pretty spot on.
Is this the part of the
Yeah.
product you're talking about, like under analyze here? That's all
Yeah.
yeah.
So it would basically
Good
use
question.
product analytics to figure out or triage essentially any deployment errors that happened, and then be able to use that information. Well, let me back up. The discussion was centered around, I believe, when people want to leave feedback on a Duo feature right now, it currently goes to one place, and they were figuring out a way to separate the location or how the feedback is like served to us, so that we would be able to do something like this in the future, where product analytics, you could see on your dashboard through product analytics, oh, there was like a huge drop in page views, for instance. And then that same dashboard would be able to tell you, hey, this was because of, or through an alert, say, hey, there's an error in this deployment, and that's causing this like discrepancy in the data, or this weird kind of spike or plummet in the data for that specific time. So it was almost like using it as an alert system through product analytics to say something's wrong with the deployment, and that's what's causing this weird kind of aberrant data.
Yeah, there's definitely an overlap when it comes to that perspective. Right now, whether it sticks within the product analytics space or you recognize that there's a problem, the deployment happened yesterday, now all of a sudden things are dropping, you click through, maybe it would change to the observability tracing and logging and stuff to really dig into things. I'm not 100% sure, but ultimately that's why you and Libor were transferred to my team because I already had monitor and observability.
Mhm.
Because there's such a
makes
relationship
sense.
between all this stuff.
Okay.
So Justin, do you know if it's the same persona that's coming to the analytics? I mean, well, I guess it depends on which analytics they're looking for.
So I think there are overlaps. I think what would happen is the product manager might see analytics problem, and then they might call in the engineer to say, hey, you guys released something yesterday. We got this drop off now. Dig into it and figure it out. It might be something like that.
Mhm.
Like I could see that happening. Right, Graham? I think the analytics
Mhm.
side of how well is our page views, are people clicking through and buying things effectively, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's the PM's job. And then they might call in engineers to help. Why is there a problem?
Yeah. Because our reporting is almost all like front end reporting on like an app or a site for the customer. But yeah, it could, like in those cases where it could be affected, somebody like Justin said, like a product manager might be like, hey, I'm seeing this weird, plummet or valley in the data, like what's going on? And then that could spawn a discussion of somebody going to um instrumentation and being like, oh, something broke and that's why.
And that's the instrumentation part is probably when they'd start to pull up observability type analytics as opposed to product analytics. So there's a crossover, but I think they might change locations in the app in GitLab. But we haven't gotten that far in the workflow to figure out how that would work yet.
Okay. So, okay, let's go back to, and one of the things that Sasha, the PM for observability, has identified is there are all of these separate pages, but not something equivalent to the security dashboard. The security dashboard is lacking, to put it nicely. But you can't even see anything here. But essentially, there's one graph at the project level and two on the group level that kind of that aim to summarize like all of the different types of security scans. When I go back to Threat Insights, that's going to be our priority. But anyway, not important. I just wanted to mention that that's something that they want to look into in the future, is some kind of like overview page of all of this stuff going on. So they can really, you don't have to like go into each of these. I'm not sure, Justin, if you know if there's any kind of like alerting or notifications, if any of this stuff is tied into, like, can you get a Slack ping if something crosses a certain threshold, or if they're just too young for that right now?
I think they're too young for that. I vaguely recall that conversation or being broached, but I don't think they have anything yet.
Yeah, did that come up?
Breached, talked about.
Investigate incident. Okay, so alerts come from a third party. That's right. Sasha did mention that yesterday. If there's an incident that's happening outside of GitLab, and then they would come into a page like this to investigate the incident.
Yeah, that might have been something Amelia worked on back in the day, where they could hook in their third party for incidents.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I'm hoping we can all just help me poke at the UX here and just identify some low-hanging fruit. I did start a Figma where I took a bunch of screenshots. So some things have come up. I'll point them out, and then hopefully you can all help me identify some things. The first one that I noticed, so there's this filtered search component at the top, which, Justin, is interesting. I don't know if I've talked about this with anybody else, but on the vulnerability report, how we have those single stats, and then let me jump over there real quick. We have single stats at the top, and then we have filters, and then we have the list. I think the way that the tracing page is organized is a bit more clear, because something that's been very unclear for some people on this page is when I update, like if I put all statuses, these update as well.
Mhm.
Some people wouldn't expect that to happen because the filters are below this. But it's like affecting the list below and these stats above. And so that is something that is nice that I noticed right away, is like, it's pretty clear that whatever you put in this filter is going to affect everything below it.
And I also
there
tried to
aren't-
recommend that they use that filter search bar because of the direction you were going in.
I'm such an influencer, for better or worse.
Yeah,
Don't
for
even
sure.
know it. Okay, so, and I know Chad also pinged me this morning, and we've started talking about how Papercuts is now looking into small improvements for the filtered search component, which is so exciting because there are a lot of like existing bugs and oddities with it. So hopefully some of those will go away. But okay. So one thing I noticed is there's these 3 metrics. This is probably not an MVC thing, but I do. So I guess if you want to like get more into detail, like zoom in or zoom out, it's not that hard to go in here and change this. You have to wait for it to reload.
Are they using the correct patterns when you do that too? Like stuff like that is the type of stuff that they could use feedback on. Like is a skeleton loader the right thing to do when you change this?
I think so.
Okay.
The content that they were showing didn't seem to really align with like the graphs. I don't know what options we have, but it was showing like placeholder text stuff. It seemed kind of
Mhm.
like it wasn't balanced or wasn't connected to the graphs themselves. I'm also curious to see how these graphs scale at different viewpoints too, because they are pretty tight in there.
What did you mean that it's not connected to the graphs?
So when you see the skeleton loaders itself, we're basically pulling in like
Oh, they're
text
lines
placeholder
and not,
lines.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a visual
Right.
disconnect there. So
Do we
super
have
minor,
a
but
chart skeleton loader concept?
I don't know that we
We
do.
could
I
just
don't
use a
think so.
big rectangle.
Yeah, that would probably be more adequate than the lines.
And it would still pulse though, kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, that's a good call. See, that's the type of stuff that
Yeah, that's perfect.
just missed.
But we're kind of talking about UI details, which are important. But I guess for the UX scorecard or whatever you're going to do, you need to go through the workflow as a user. And I think that Michael's comment was quite relevant, which is like, we have 3 tiny graphs next to each other. For example, like, am I getting useful information from those graphs? Is that the most important thing I need to see based on what I'm trying to achieve? And I know absolutely nothing about this, so I can't answer that question. But yeah, those are the kind of things I would be more like, if you're going to make improvements, that's what I would focus on more than like UI details.
Yeah. So like our 3 small charts at the top of this page, efficient.
I guess it's more just like, if I'm that persona and I'm coming into this page, what am I trying to do? And if you started with a blank canvas, what would you design there?
Yeah.
Also, like if I'm just needing a quick glimpse of this to see like a delta, do you need all of that like visual noise, or could like a spark line be okay for this? And with like a delta shown next to it or on hover or something. But that depends on like who's visiting and what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think in general, the question I have is like, what is the jobs to be done? What are the primary?
Did the jobs to be done exist?
They're in process.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I don't understand this new direction of jobs to be done, but they completed the first step of this jobs to be done process. The next one the next step is to so share research insights with observability and runner groups. So they've done this, and the next step is to create outcome statements and conduct opportunity score survey. So they haven't gotten to that yet, but the jobs portion is complete. It's just not written as we typically think of jobs, which will refer to this new framework that they're using. So like, these are the jobs.
Well, this framing or phrasing is the new version, which is the old version, the right version, just a simple job. What is the main job, the primary goal? The job, if, when I want to, and all that stuff, that's a job story. That's like at the end when you're trying to figure out what issue should I start working on.
Why has this gotten so much more complicated?
The job is just
It
a simple
hasn't.
task. It's just the task
easier.
that he's just trying to accomplish without the extra, like what, like the context or the person. It's just the task in isolation. Did they come up with a job canvas during this research?
So we do have a lot of information here. Okay.
Step 3 is probably your synthesized job canvas.
So maybe it's monitor pipeline performance. I don't know if they talk about like where exactly to go. Monitor pipeline performance. Who is doing the job? Pipeline performance monitor. Okay. Minimize the amount of time spent on task switching. Minimize the time it takes for individual pipeline jobs to run. Maximize my productivity by making sure pipelines finish quickly.
I don't know.
So can they find the problematic pipeline, or is that a different page?
Tracing, I don't know why tracing, I don't think tracing has to do with pipelines. Tracing is when you click on a button on a web page, it jumps through a bunch of HTTP steps in the background. That's what tracing is. It's the steps that button click just initiated, and you want to trace that workflow to see where the problems are, if there are any.
Right, because if I click one of
pipelines,
these,
I don't understand the pipeline's job for observability.
Becca, if this were, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if this were me, because when jobs be done, they interview real users. I know this is really annoying, but I'd probably just watch the recordings.
That was my next step. I was just gonna watch all of these. I just didn't have time to do it before this call. But yeah, I just need to hear it from the horse's mouth. Is that the expression? I'm not gonna call anybody a horse. I don't. Anyway, to build empathy, that was going to be my next step to better understand like what their workflows are. I figured I just would watch these videos. I just didn't have time to do this before this. So sorry, I can't speak to workflows and what exactly they're trying to achieve, but I think it's helpful to just analyze this from a heuristic analysis point of view. Something else that I realized is, I mean, first of all, these popovers are really wide. And so to match the value with the, or the key, the identifier with the value, it's like your eye has to go all the way across. I mean, it's the same thing with these.
Yeah, right? They don't match our date standards as well, unless you've overridden where it says GMT minus 0500.
Oh, is that not our?
No, I don't think. I think we generally do not put like the seconds and the additional information unless there's like, unless seconds matter.
Okay.
Seconds might matter.
Okay.
Because it is a duration thing. Like if a certain step in the trace takes longer than the average traces take, that's
right. I know that's something that we identified yesterday too. Like, so the way that this table is sorted is the timestamp, but because there's so many things happening within a minute, you're just seeing a minute, like 1:28 p.m. CDT for like many of them. And so it's not clear why this one is above this one. So we actually may want to bring the milliseconds into here.
The duration is over there, but maybe they want to move the duration further to the left so it's closer to the daytime.
Maybe they want to move duration closer
Because
to
that, oh, I guess it's not, I was thinking that was longer and that's why it was top, but then you got that 3.
because yeah, you can sort by duration as well.
It's
I don't-
funny that the sorting is like not tied to the table. I'm pretty sure we have a sort that's built into the table where like next to where it says
True.
duration.
Yeah,
That might be more clear.
and it also allows for a little bit more room. I don't know how wide this could go, but on smaller screen sizes, like I always prefer to do column headers instead, because you get the same functionality like ascending, descending just by clicking on it again in the column header too. Yeah. Let me capture this. Using an external sort rather than column header. Okay.
I think I saw this earlier too, but did you click on one of the items in the table
Yes, this.
and it goes to like a separate page with
Yeah,
that as the header?
that is not at all clear that this is clickable, is it?
Well, not only that, but like, does it make sense that they lose the page or they leave the page? Do they need the context of all the other stuff if they're like triaging this or something?
Mm,
Would it
That's
make
a
sense to
great
open in
question
an
to ask.
accordion?
that is a good question to ask. Absolutely.
My interpretation is they have to dig into that, or they decided to dig into that row,
Hmm.
and that's where they get the details of the trace. Because there can be lots and lots of items in a single row.
So it just bogged down the page if it was all, if each one had like an accordion.
Because
that you could
these next things are called spans. There are multiple spans within a trace, and there could be, and they're all accordions. It's a tree.
Oh, dang. Okay. That kind of makes sense then.
I was also wondering if when there's a lot of it's broke.
Why not broke? It might just be too much data it's trying to consume. That's another problem with this, is there's a lot of data that can be attempted to be represented.
Yep. Welcome to my world and thread insights, database, timeouts, queries, all the things.
It's interesting. It's showing 50 traces at the bottom. It says that, but obviously there's only like what, 6 here.
Oh,
Is it a
there they are.
scrollable?
Did they all come in, or is that it?
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
that's weird that
scrollable.
50 traces is shown like on
It
a
looks like it's
Z
fixed to
index.
the bottom of the viewport or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
It's
know they
helpful.
use, this was something else I wanted your thoughts on. They use infinite scroll.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so now so it loads like 50 at a time. And I don't know if these charts are showing all like only what's loaded below, or
They don't seem to
Scroll
be
down.
updating as you're
Yeah.
scrolling. So I think it is showing the full 7 days. maybe that's why it took them longer to come in, whereas the list came in quite quickly.
If it's using infinite scroll, is it the text at the very bottom with the 150 traces saying that like that's the limit that we're ever going to show? Or does that change?
It changed as you scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, it updated to
Interesting.
150. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that pattern.
I would say infinite scrolling is a better user experience as opposed to pagination because you can get everything on a single page. I think it was only just a bit confusing that because that thing is stuck to the bottom, it looks like the list is fully loaded. So that might just be like a UI polish thing.
Hmm. Looks like list is fully. Traces. Yeah, I mean, would it be better if it just didn't say this at all? And then you scroll down and then it's like a message saying loading 50 more traces.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
When you were scrolling too, I noticed there were a couple with errors, and assuming that that's maybe part of my workflow, how would I quickly jump to a list of just the ones that have errors if that's necessary?
Like, can you filter out just show me?
Yeah,
errors?
like can you filter errors or something?
Status maybe?
Be an attribute. Oh, status up.
Yeah, I mean, and then
Oh.
that.
That's broke.
We found a bug.
And then further too, with the graphs being there, can I click on something in the graph and have the list immediately scroll to the area of the graph that is like represented by that?
God, I vaguely remember them talking about that, but I don't know if it was on this page.
Hold on, let me make a note of that first thing. So I had to scroll down to find this error. It was below page fold. Should this page default to showing errors or sorting to showing errors at the top, e.g. through sort? Like that? Do you think that?
Yeah.
And then what was the second thing you said?
Can I, that first graph, can I navigate to that specific like section using the graph as like a nav item? Like if I click on it,
There's no interaction.
there's no interaction. Okay.
Yeah, with the graphs. I'll make a note of that. I don't know how important that is for the user, but I'm sure people would want to be able to interact. No interaction with graph. Would users want to be able to zoom in or click in to find more info about the section? Okay. Anything else on this page?
This is a really nitpicky thing because I've worked in this before and it's super hard and super frustrating. But if I'm not using a mouse and keyboard, how am I navigating through the graphs? Or if I'm not using a mouse, rather, like is there like models for navigating the graphs with a screen reader that maybe we could assist with? Because that part gets really frustrating really quickly, especially if it's populated.
What does this experience what is this experience using a screen reader?
Or even just your keyboard
Or even just,
data viz is just like super frustrating with that kind of thing.
yeah. Something else that's interesting here, and I kind of get why, is like I can't actually clear the time range. I have to click there.
Yeah, but hit
Then,
enter and see if you can even update. Yeah, it won't do it.
yeah, it needs some time range. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Then it probably shouldn't be in a filter bar. Probably should be like a drop down or something if it's required.
Yeah, that might have been the
Mm,
trade-off between using the filter bar versus individual drop-downs.
Ditching the clear all may be appropriate if it's stuck in the filter bar, if we're just using the filter bar, because it is a little misleading.
yeah,
But I guess it also depends on how many filters people are applying to, because if you have 4 or 5 filters, clearing each one individually may be painstaking.
yeah.
Could have a mixture of the drop down for the required filters and then the filter bar for the optional ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That alert bar shouldn't be full width. Should have some padding or margins, right? Super minor.
And I think with error messaging, I know I always like try to encourage some helpful action to proceed rather than just like, nope. I mean, it's probably something as simple like update the filter and try again or reload the page. Alert shouldn't span entire width of page. We make this more helpful. How to fix proceed. Okay, this is great.
We have so many data points like that. I question how useful these graphs are.
I know, like I almost want to be able to like expand it or like just click into it. But then again, I'm also wondering if like, I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Maybe I just need to focus on, 4 hours at a time. But it'd be nice if I could like zoom in, just like highlight the section like you can in Figma, how you highlight it and then it zooms into that area. It'd be nice if there was some kind of interaction there in that way.
I think this also speaks a little bit to Graham and Katie's ideas in terms of goals.
Yeah.
Like if their goal is looking at these charts just to see where there's a space to dig into, like that chart that you just pasted in, that line that jumps all the way up, like why were you all the way at the bottom and now you're all the way at the top? Like that might be enough to key them in if there's a problem at that time.
Yeah, if
that might
that's
be
all I
they
need to see. Like, oh, there was a jump. That's not good.
But also
So
like
does it need to be this chart like Graham you suggested? Could it be a spark line? Something just enough to see a rapid change.
Yeah. Or even like if they're filtering by like last 7 days, just a summary of like over certain thresholds, these events happened. Like if they don't need to worry about a jump that's like this, if it's less than a 20% jump in errors, then maybe it doesn't even show up because it's not necessary. But something above that, it could say, hey, there was like a 40% jump on this day at this time. More like smart insights rather than just showing the full picture at all times.
mm,
If
more.
this is truly like a summary page kind of thing.
So am I understanding this right? Like if this is an event, would it be, okay, so assuming this is this jump or this spike in the data is a concern, would it be possible to highlight this? Is there a separate chart and alert? Okay. This does not seem very helpful. What? Oh, right, and I was also gonna comment on time date format. Where was that? These? Is that the date? time?
I think in the tooltips.
The hover, yeah. As well as that, because it says CDT. I don't know if that's necessary.
Hmm.
That may be adjusting to my time zone.
But that's like in that pajamas thing, it's like we assume that you're in your own time zone
Mm.
and we display the dates like that. So it might be unnecessary information.
Is that why it was saying GMT minus 5 hours in the tooltip too?
Yeah, like whatever it should be, and Becca, you can find this out from your investigations. Like it should at least be consistent between the two, I reckon.
Yeah.
We have the same problem on product analytics. I have to go through so many of the formatting issues soon.
Date time formatting.
Oh yeah, Central Daylight Time.
In this popover should match formatting of traces in the list below. Yeah, okay. What time does this meeting go till? Now, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
All right, well then let's at least just look at this page.
Simple one.
I think these are also outdated. I don't think these single stats are pajamas compliant.
Well, that's my fault. I told them to leverage the vulnerability page style.
Oh, gotcha.
Is it weird
But
that
still
they're
worth calling
centered
out.
on the page?
I thought that's what they were on the vulnerability report.
If they span the full width,
There's-
but I could be wrong.
Well, there's just more of them on the vulnerability report.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the new versions are left aligned now. So either way, it's worth pointing out.
These single stats are now outdated. See. And then you can click on these and get more information in a drawer.
That was really not obvious that those were clickable. I would expect, if anything, it would collapse the accordion.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't like that it overtake. Well,
That's our problem with the accordion or with the drawer design, I think. But it overlaps, you mean, instead of pushing aside?
that or like it could come up from the bottom maybe, but I don't even know if that's like a pattern we it's weird that it takes over the graphs though.
How would you make it more obvious that you could click on a row?
Well, are those rows the correct design? Again, I don't know the workflow, because I would
It
start
was
there.
taken from the pattern we leveraged, I believe, was roadmap, the roadmap page. think. Somewhere in the product, it does it like this. So we leverage the pattern from that.
Because this
I don't
is
know if it
telling
does the
me
drawer, but it does the tree accordion stuff that way.
the tree accordion is like, of this event, 90% was this and 10% was this, I guess. Is that the most important information to show on this page?
Good question.
Say that again.
Like what I take this to mean, knowing nothing about this product area, is like we have this trace and we're showing the distribution of different things that happen in the trace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, is that the most important? Is because that's what takes the hierarchy, or is the most important the detail that you get in the drawer? It's like, what is the person coming here to see?
Right, right.
So
Click on one that's got errors.
That's also interesting that it just like cuts off.
Yeah, why are they right aligned now?
I think it's because they happened after that.
Yeah, that's definitely strange. Because the other page, they definitely were left aligned.
Well, remember, this traces our workflows of a process of when things happen. So it could be that when they're stacked left aligned, that's because they're all happening at once. But then the stuff that's right aligned is happening after the top ones happened, but then consecutively. Those four are consecutive. Need to confirm that, but I think that's why.
Yeah. The labels jumping off the edge of the page are kind of obviously bad.
Yeah.
Not great.
Find an error, you said.
So
I'm guessing
where
it's
that
going
drop down, only one of those values has an icon, the rest don't.
in the drop down.
In the menu bar, only the time range has an icon, like a little clock icon, but none of the others have an icon with them.
Oh, yeah, good call.
This does seem like an interesting problem space. Like, I'm kind of excited to see what you do with it.
Ooh, no pressure. Yeah, what's exciting about working on something that has a lot of UX question marks is like I feel like I can add value.
I think like the detailed drill down is going to be super interesting too.
Oh, look at that, a red background, which is not
Interesting.
very accessible friendly and should also have this matching icon here.
Where would you put the icon?
Like in front or
That
after
messes up the left alignment.
well, then to the right. You need that icon though. Can't rely on color
Well,
alone.
there's a word that says error in there.
Put it in above, add another line to the line section.
But again, we're talking about small UI details. It could be that when the person clicks into the detailed view of an error, they would want an explanation of the error, how to remediate it, or why it happened. And maybe this chart is not even useful. Like, it could be that Becca explores this and is like, this whole thing needs to be redesigned.
Yeah.
Also, does it like, would this be like a way of doing almost like a proxy filter where if you click get, because it includes everything, you're given a summary of everything? But if you click on the different ones underneath it, you only get that like top down from that point. Or are they all opening the same drawer, I guess? Like, is there a difference in what opens what?
Good question.
I think it's all different data.
Is it all different? Like every single one
Yeah,
is
let's
different,
see.
even though it's like a parent of.
Yeah, they're different. It's different data.
Okay.
The formatting here also. So is this is in nanoseconds?
Can't
This
even
should
really tell.
yeah. I feel like
So then if it's presented this way, couldn't it all just be in a single timeline? And then a means to get into. Wait, that kind of defeats the purpose, actually.
I think that there's a lot of goal, like, what is the performer trying to achieve on this page questions.
Yeah, agreed. I
Yeah.
think Katie hit the nail on the head. You need to kind of figure out what the purpose is before you can figure out how you can actually change this page to help users.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm really just looking for kind of paper cutsy type stuff right now, I guess.
A lot of the patterns that we're looking at too are also leveraged from competitors too.
This I
Not that
thought
they're
was
right, but that happened.
with this, I wonder if people who use this know what each of these things are.
Yeah, it seems like we could spell it out fully instead of using the 3-letter abbreviation.
Yeah.
I almost wish I could watch the interviews with you. I'm like super invested in this.
Great. I will send you this link. You can absolutely watch the interviews.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. There is, like I said earlier, there's a relationship between this from product analytics,
That's true. Yeah.
Justin, did you have anything to do with the also so many lines here? I don't know if that's needed, but did you have anything to do with this part? Because this is reminding me of that section where that I designed to create the saved view, but I don't know why it has to be on 3 lines.
I don't know why it's going to be on 3 lines, but there was a submission problem. We didn't want the search filter bar to be the submission mechanism because they needed to answer more questions in terms of the filter. So that's why it was done following this sort of pattern, where the search button is the primary way of submitting, not just hitting enter or clicking the magnifying glass in the search bar.
Right.
Definitely get the purpose of that, but that creates sort of a different paradigm as you're going from page to page on how to interact with and filter down on stuff. It's kind of potentially confusing.
It was definitely a conundrum, and this worked for now.
Right, because that's something our search filter blocks.
And they had to update the search filter to break the magnifying glass from being a submission button. Look, I don't even know if they did that here, but I know that there was an MR for it.
So what's the point if all I can do is filter by these attributes here? Isn't this redundant?
I don't know, actually. I thought there was supposed to be more in the filter bar. Yeah, we're at time, well over time now.
Okay.
If anyone needs to jump.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
do.
jump.
Yeah. Thanks, Katie. Good seeing you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Katie.
Hope your time gets better.
All right, I gotta go meet with Ben.
Cool.
I'm just gonna say,
Thanks for doing this. I hope it was helpful. And send Graham all the links to the research site. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Graham, I look forward to collaborating with you on this.
Hey.
Signed up for it.
Heck yes.
All right. You good?
Yeah, And then, I mean, the last page was going to be the logs, if anybody wants to give feedback async, but definitely this service column is too narrow when this one is so wide.
Don't
make
think I've
sense.
touched the logs. That does not look that familiar.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. This was very helpful.
Yeah, this
Cool.
was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheerio. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.